has finally took its toll.
Good evening and welcome to another in our MTV Community Forum. We're pleased to have you here this evening. I have changed seats with my co-host. I am the host and he's on the other side. Byron, good evening.
Good evening, Chris, and of course, welcome to all our viewers, wherever you are, Facebook, YouTube, MTV channel. Interesting evening we have. We have a lot to discuss, Chris, and we have a very, I just want to say interesting guest. You can say who our special guest would be tonight.
Our special guest this evening is none other than Attorney at Law Arley Gill. And Ali is going to be here talking about various number of subjects. As you know, he served in CARICOM, he served the magistrate, wealth of experience in different areas, culture and all kinds, even sang calypsos. Yeah, that's that. So Ali is going to be talking to us some number of things tonight, so we see how that goes, and we invite you to stay with us. So Byron, you know, we had this situation with the marketing board and the delays and what is happening in marketing board. And, you know, it is a tragedy that the government announced that the PPP that was supposed to come in place have been delayed for we don't know what. And this discussion has been going on for quite a while. And, you know, the effects of marketing board on the farming communities, the farmers probably don't have a secured place where they could go and sell their produce. What is your thoughts on this?
Chris, yes, we had an announcement, a statement by the Prime Minister last week, because marketing board falls under his portfolio, of course. And he was saying that that the delays, because remember, a couple of months ago, marketing board was renamed. It's called now the Import-Export Agromat Limited, yeah? It's a new company being formulated. They're seeking a strategic partner. We assume they did the Minister of Finance made statements at the budget earlier this year saying that by the third quarter of this year, it would be on. It hasn't happened. So the Prime Minister came out and said the reason why is a lack of financial statements showing the historic performance of the MNIB. And this, he says, is contributing to delay. Well, I took this with a grain of salt. Let me tell you why. Because this is a new company being formulated. It has nothing to do with the old company. New operations, new systems. So I would assume they would have developed a prospectus. And this prospectus would have included cash flow and new financial arrangement, financing, and all things, you know. Yes, you might make reference to the old company, but you can't tell me that statements or records from the old company is that should determine going forward. So I'm a bit puzzled as regards the reason put forward for delay. But the point you made is relevant. Marketing board is urgently needed by the farming community.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in marketing board, there was some delay in the financial reports, but by the time I stepped away, they were getting on board and on track.
Yeah.
So they're supposed to be relatively current. So it's surprising to hear that.
So yeah, that's an excuse. 2 years in waiting. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
You know, we had a situation in the country where a lady was on the sidewalk, fell into a hole and broke her feet. And I think it raises concern of what is going on with our roadways and the sidewalks in particular, in terms of maintenance and holes and all of that. Well, I mean,
Chris, yes, this did happen, and it's a major issue in the city. Culverts and inverts, they're broken, and so you can understand why our pedestrians are getting injured. But it's interesting too that our tourist season starts in a week or so, and I was speaking today actually with the walk-in tour guides, and they said, look, it's a problem for us. We always have to warn tourists and that be careful. This is dangerous. We could be sued. There could be a major accidents there. So, and the carnage also comes under scrutiny. The sidewalks there. Today I saw it also. Dangerous. When I say dangerous, it's a hazard, you know, and I think these should be priorities, not just for the tourists, yes, but for all pedestrians. So yes, I think urgent attention is needed there in this infrastructure.
I want to inform the viewers, on this table here, we have a plastic egg tray, and we have a biodegradable one on the bottom. And the issue we have showing this tonight is that, you know, Grenada has made a lot of strides in terms of environmental concerns. We have a lot of things with the air conditions and the gas we use. We're going to greener gases. And we had a lot of debate on plastics and plastic bags and so on. And here we're going back now to plastic egg trays versus the biodegradable one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a major issue, Chris. I mean, what we have here is one-use plastics. This is going to stay around for hundreds of years. It will deteriorate, but it's going to microplastics, and we know what microplastics is doing. It's going into the in the marine environment. Other fish, they're just digesting, and we in turn. So it's a major problem. And so if we have a one-use policy on plastic, I think it should also be
applied to control the use of
yes. Yes, Chris. So I think it's important that whoever is doing this clearly. I think we're breaking the law here. We need to examine this.
Yeah, well, they're getting permission to do it. So
yes.
And you know, the complaint in Grenada now is the severe heat we've been having for more than a month now. Temperatures averaging 30 degrees and sometimes higher, 32.5, 33 degrees. Everybody's complaining how hot the place is, in particular our farmers that are doing vegetable farming, lettuces and cucumbers. You know, they're struggling with this heat and a lot of water have to take place. But some fruits are doing well. So, for example, you know, you're getting a lot of plantains. I've never seen plantains at the rate we're getting plantains now.
Okay. So I agree with you, Chris. Is it climate change? Certainly, it could be. But yes, particularly if you're a vegetable farmer and you're dependent on rain-fed farming, you're in a bit of a problem. Of course, we have a lot of farms now that utilize irrigation, and so the point is we need to go more into that, particularly for vegetable production. The tree crops and like bananas and so they are more greater resistance to water. You know, they don't get water for a week. They're not going to die.
Some of these, because of the drought, they're falling.
They're falling.
They're breaking. Yeah. Because they don't have the rigidity of the water.
Irrigation and water management is going to play a greater role, a significant role. So as we go forward.
Well, we have never seen that kind of heat in our lifetime, Byron. I mean, you are a farmer for years. Have you experienced this?
This year is really unseasonal. I've never experienced this. It's bad. So farmers, I mean, all take care. Certainly to be hydrated, and particularly the elderly. Yeah. You know.
I want to extend congratulations to the RGPF on the quick results they got with the young man who was in this rape assault issue with medical students. I thought the RGP did well to bring them into custody and to deal with the situation. It sent out a bad message in the first case, but the fact that we have acted on it quickly and we have brought some resolution to the matter is good as well.
Chris, I noted this, and kudos to the Royal Grenada Police Force. But what's interesting, if you look at the data, if you look at the record, Chris, in 2023, which is the last year we have records for, their solvency rate was 74.8, 75%, extremely high. It's incredibly high. And if you look at the solvency rate for murders, it's like 95%. Out of 18 murders, they solve 17. This compared to other territories like Trinidad and Tobago is 18%.
Yes, well.
It's like St. Vincent, 35%. We are 95. So I think this is a big deal for our, and even our crime rate overall is about just over 4%. That is per 100,000 compared to St. Lucia, which is 30%.
Yeah, the RGPF is doing a good job.
So we're still in a very good way. But as we're going to be hearing from our guest later, who is certainly a criminal attorney, criminal attorney, is that a correct term? I don't know. But he's someone that's involved in representing accused and so on. So he will throw more light on this. But I think the point is, we had to be proud of the record of our police force. So this is why when I hear others talk about let's get foreign assistance. You know, we have to be proud of our own
Yeah. And
use that.
you know, throwing them under the bus by inviting foreigners to come and do something that we can't even. We're not even sure about the reports that's coming out yet.
Yes.
You know, Byron, I took the opportunity to go around earlier on in the week and late last week, and you know, a lot of Christmas stores are riding up in terms of Christmas decorations. You could get artificial trees. You're seeing toys start coming out. We're in early October.
Yeah.
But there seemed to be a buzz in some of the stores. I don't know if, you know, Christmas carols are playing on the radio. I mean, I love Christmas and what it brings.
Yeah.
So, but the issue is, you know, would the spending power be there? Understanding that inflation may hit us in terms of food based on the tariffs that Trump is implementing and implementing quick. So I look at that with caution.
Chris, your observation is correct. I mean, clearly there's a buzz now about rising cost of living. We see it in energy, certainly electricity, cost of electricity. And as you go around, you know, and you talk to people, you get a sense that a lot of the funds is not really there. People are going to prioritize essentials, you know. So it's left to be seen, but it's left to be seen. That's all I would say. But it's interesting that the merchants are, it's the season, and let's see what happens. It's too easy to tell, but the signs are cost of living, we know certainly is on the rise. That's a fact.
I want to talk quickly about traffic. Okay, I know.
Yes.
You know, we have a lot of disruptions now with all the works that's going on.
Yeah.
And all the various parts on the roads and so on. A lot of dust. It's a little bit uncomfortable for the traffic when you're going down to Grand Dance and other areas. And of course, how the traffic lights are being used to control the traffic is something that I think the traffic department at the RGPF needs to constantly be taking a look at and understanding how the adjustments will work.
Because I'm not saying they're not trying, you know, albeit they are, but to what extent they're getting the job done, particularly with parking. I mean, it's a disaster wherever you go, whether it's at Brizan or Molinier or St. Paul's, or people just park arbitrarily on the road the wrong direction, wherever, you know, and there are no. That is a hindrance to the flow of traffic, and we had a major accident where people could have been killed, major injuries sustained in
the bus on the truck.
Yeah, the bus on the truck, recklessness, you know. So we have those issues, and also to what extent our traffic lights are working to the best or facilitating traffic. I have seen it, and I'm not sure. I think, yes, it was designed a way. They would have taken data and so on, but I think we need to constantly evaluate this data and to assess how, because sometimes I swear, the food fair traffic light in Grandlands, it's a hindrance sometimes, you know. There's no traffic, and the traffic coming from St. George's is just held up for a mile. You know?
Well, I mean,
so it's an ongoing situation, but clearly this is an area as we have more and more vehicles coming in, 300 a month. I don't know, but average.
Yeah, 3,000 plus vehicles in the country a year.
I mean,
I heard the Prime Minister said they're going to limit the age coming in and move from 10 to 5.
10 to 5, which is a good policy, possibly, but.
I don't know if that will help the volume, because EVs and hybrids are now dominating shipments coming in because of the cost.
Yeah, we have a
fuel
traffic
cost goes up.
We have a traffic, how you call it, management authority. I'm not feeling their work. You know, I'm not, because I understand that traffic plays an important role to the economy. It's going to take you an hour plus to get to Grandlands.
Transportation is one of the pillars the economic activities based on.
It's something that requires constant attention, you know, like infrastructure. And again, I'm going to say this, we have our Prime Minister with 9 portfolios. One of them is infrastructure. And traffic, I mean, to what extent he has the time.
Well, boy, Byron, we wait and see.
Okay.
So, viewers, we take a break now, and when we come back, we'll bring in our guest, Attorney at Law Arley Gill, to talk to us on a number of subjects. Stay tuned.
Allied Laboratories, providing quality care and expertise. Fit for life and Allied Laboratories. See our in-house doctors and our pharmacies. Get expert care and quality tests. When it comes to your health, you deserve the best. Fit for life and Allied Laboratories. We're taking care of Grenada.
Grenada, it's time to stand behind our boys. Team Grenada is back on home turf this October for 2 exciting international friendlies. Grenada versus British Virgin Islands, Wednesday, October 8th at 6 p.m. And Grenada versus Cuba, Saturday, October 11th at 7:30 p.m. This is more than football. This is national pride. Let's pack the stands and show the world the heart of Team Grenada. Get your tickets for the Grenada versus British Virgin Islands for just $20 adults, $10 for students, and children 10 and under enter free. And for Grenada versus Cuba, adults cost $25, $10 for students, and children 10 and under enter free. Get yours at the GFA's office, Chucky's Bar, Heather's Boutique, or Grenadian Optical in St. George's and Spiceland Mall. Adult tickets are also available online at godafed.com. 2 matches, 1 team, 1 nation. Support Team Grenada this October.
Grenadians, get ready to commemorate National Heroes Day on Sunday, October 19th at the former Riviera Hotel site next to Camahorn Park. Grand dance from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. The theme for this year's commemoration, honoring our legacy, inspiring our future. This National Heroes Day commemoration promises to be one to remember, with a prayer and worship segment, the spoken word, and a powerful message from our special guest speaker. National Heroes Day Commemoration 2025 will also see the official sword turning on the grounds of the Riviera site, which will then be known as National Heroes and Heritage Park. Sunday, October 19th, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. National Heroes Day Commemoration. Monrouge, St. George. See you there.
Good evening again, viewers, and welcome again to MTV Community Forum. And of course, we are joined here by our co-host, Guest Arley. And tonight we engage one of Grenada's most articulate and provocative thinkers. He's an attorney, he's a cultural advocate, a former diplomat, a social critic. He stated that Ali has dedicated his life to the cause of reparations and reparatory justice for indigenous people and Africans and peoples from Africa descent. From law to culture, from Calypso 10 to the CARICOM table, because I want to say that he was also once our CARICOM ambassador for Grenada. Ali has been at the heart of national and regional issues for over 25 years. He's been a practicing lawyer for 25 years. Tonight we take a deep dive into politics, into justice, identity, and Grenada's place in what we say an increasingly turbulent world. Mr. Gill, welcome, and it's always good to have you on Community Forum.
Thank you very much for having me. And I tell you said a whole lot of things about me, and nearly did not recognize myself. Thank you, sir, for your kind words.
And something I didn't say, and I should say, that Ali has an LLM. This is like a Master of Law in Maritime Law.
Yes.
You know,
One of the few.
Yeah.
From Clouden.
Yes.
And this is important because we'll be touching on this subject tonight also.
Yes.
Let us begin with the growing military presence in the Southern Caribbean near Venezuela, reportedly by the United States to counter narco trafficking. but many believe this is more about oil and influence. CARICOM has been silenced. Even Trinidad and Tobago engagement with Venezuela over the Dragon gas field has drawn mixed reaction. What is your view on this, Ali?
First of all, let me state emphatically that I subscribe to the principles that the Caribbean is a zone of peace. And that principle was stated by our founding fathers from the days of Grantley Adams, Michael Manley, all of our major leaders who emerged in the early days of independence. They have made it clear that, and let's not forget Eric Williams and the struggle to remove the US base in Chagaramas in Trinidad, that the Caribbean is a zone of peace. So the military buildup by the United States in the Caribbean under the pretext of fighting, first of all, what they said was drug trafficking, and then they upgraded it to narco-terrorism, which to our viewers would understand that that is what explains the arbitrary shooting, bombing, whatever, and killing, of course, of suspected drug traffickers.
Well, narco-terrorists.
Narco-terrorists. Because of the use of the word terrorists now, that they believe that with impunity,
that's correct,
without investigation, without the gathering of evidence, without charging these persons, and without having a trial by their peers in one of the respective jurisdictions, the United States, through its president, have announced that thus far,
are they breaking maritime laws?
Incidences.
well,
They're breaking international law. There is no law that justifies the United States taking such action.
They say they're in international waters.
Yeah, but the international waters, this narco-terrorism is United States policy. It is not international law. International law is established through, in this particular case, consent by nations. So there are different ways in which international law is established. One through convention. So if you have a convention where a majority of states or a lot of states would have signed on to and ratify, that practice then becomes law between the states. And over time, if that principle of law is established, then it becomes what we call norms, international norms, that then not only is applicable and enforceable by the member states, but these norms, when established, even countries that do not sign on to these conventions, they are bound by the norms, or at least have some persuasive authority. But this geopolitical struggle that we now have with the United States and its military buildup in the Caribbean, close to Venezuelan border, has nothing to do with narco-terrorism and drug trafficking. Let's be absolutely clear about it. That's what the U.S. says, but it is much more than that. And we know that since the days of Chavez, Hugo Chavez, former leader of the Chavinistas and the revolution in Venezuela, the United States have always had issue with Venezuela. Different governments come, including that of Barack Obama and so on. They would have had sanctions, they would have had tensions, they would have recognized other persons other than the sitting president of Venezuela as president of Venezuela, even if that person didn't even contest the elections and so on. So there have always been this sort of tension and this sort of policy with the varying democratic and conservative governments in Washington with regards to how they view Caracas.
So is it oil, is it dominance?
Venezuela sits on the largest known oil reserve in the world. Venezuela sits on that. The known oil reserve in the world, Venezuela sits on the largest known oil reserve in the world. Then there is the issue, maybe we could tie in here the issue of the dispute between Guyana and Venezuela. That dispute is over a century old. So it is not, it preceded an independent Guyana. So let our listeners appreciate that since 1890 or thereabouts, when Guyana was a colony of the British, and Venezuela now coming out of the throes of Spain, they had that conflict over the dispute of land in Essequibo. So it's long before 1966, right? And in those days, it was not the issue of oil or gas or whatever natural resource. It was just territory that we know now has tremendous potential for oil and gas, right? Gas. So Venezuela sits on the largest oil reserve in the world, and we know the powerful nations are the largest manufacturing societies in the world, like the US and China and so on. Energy is extremely important. In as much as we speak of alternative energy, as much as you talk about wind and solar and climate change and so on and so forth, fossil fuel continues to, in many respects, dictate geopolitics in the world. And this, so that is the issue now with Venezuela. One, and the Venezuelans have said, that as far as they are concerned, the US is interested in regime change. And we have seen that for several elections, they have not recognized President Maduro as president, and they continue to have sanctions.
But Ali, I want to ask you about the military buildup, the issue of China and Russia support to Venezuela in military hardware.
Yes.
Their fighter jets are Russian MiGs, and China is supporting with amphibian tanks and all sort of stuff. So you're seeing superpowers gauging one another here, and the US supposedly here to help with the Guyana situation with their deposits. There are US companies in there in a big way.
In a big way.
So it's not just about, and as you say, it's oil, but it is worrying for us in the rest of the Caribbean. Because as a zone of peace, tourism is a major sector of our economy. To put fighter jets on our airport to say we support in the US based on what was, they say is going to be requested, will just obliterate our tourism sector.
Not just the tourism sector, but our economy.
Yeah.
When we look at the impact that the Ukraine conflict has had on our economy in terms of trade, in terms, and not just goods stuff coming from Ukraine and Russia, but even from China. You're talking about trade routes being affected and so on and so forth. Right. And Ukraine, for instance, is one of the biggest suppliers of wheat, which, as we know, has many in poultry effects as well. Food. Now, military conflict in the Caribbean would not only affect our tourism, it will affect our trade. Even now, and the fishermen will say to you, and I suspect maybe later on we'll speak a little bit about fishing. One of the issues for local fishermen is security with pirates at sea. That's an issue. How safe will it be then for these fishermen to go out? And if you know the longline fishermen that we speak about that is on the news, some of these guys go out for 7 and 8 days and 10 and 11 days, and they go plenty miles. Grenada shares maritime boundary with Venezuela. You know, sometimes because of the language, Venezuela Spanish and Grenada English and so on, we do not see Venezuela. Venezuela shares maritime boundary with Grenada. And more than that, just to tease you further, it is believed that on our boundary, well, there's no delimitation with Venezuela, we have better prospects of oil and gas. I leave that there.
Okay, fine. Ali, breaking news today. We heard that that the U.S. government will soon seek permission from Grenada to deploy on the island military assets. Given our strategic location, less than 100 miles from Venezuela, given what we're discussing here. If this is so, someone said on social media, we are between the devil and the deep blue sea. Where are we exactly with such a request, if it is to come?
Well, first of all, I don't want to believe it. That's the honest position. But secondly, it is not unbelievable. I wrote a week or so ago not a week, about a month ago, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell went to Venezuela went to Port of Spain, and he met Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar. And on leaving the meeting, the Trinidadian press asked him if he had any comment with regards to the military buildup, and his response was no comment. And I was taken aback. I did not feel comfortable with that answer, and I wrote an article saying that silence would not save us because of the same zone of peace. All, in my respectful view, the Prime Minister had to say was we support the zone of peace. That has been our decades-old position in the region. Now, the next thing, about a week or two after, a release from the Prime Minister's office made that statement that we support the zone of peace. And more than that, the Grenada then offered themselves to mediate between the US and Venezuela, which, in my respectful view, was a diplomatic overreach and a diplomatic faux pas. Grenada does not have, and the Prime Minister doesn't have the standing to, or the stature to negotiate on an issue between the world's most powerful country and Venezuela. And we do not have, the present administration in St. George's does not have that relationship with President Maduro to call him and say, hey, let's do this. But also too, there is not what you call a commonality in dispute between the US and Venezuela. The US is talking narco terrorism, Venezuela is talking regime change, so that there is not, in Guyana, you had a common dispute between Venezuela and Guyana. It was boundary dispute. The same does not exist between the US and Venezuela. So the question of mediation. So the question of mediation really does not arise. But if the Prime Minister had been still chair of CARICOM and so on, that would have put him in a footing. CARICOM approaching that is far different. But to get specifically now to this issue of that must be in the strongest possible way be rebuffed by St. George's. Absolutely. Our government cannot entertain that conversation. They must not be wrong one, neither wrong two, neither wrong three. And secondly, all political parties, NDC, NNP,
and citizens,
whether you say movement and churches, and everybody must be up against any military deployment of U.S. military assets on the state. We do not want it here. One of the propaganda that came after the 1983 invasion of Grenada, they said our airport was what?
Yes,
designed, well, we do not want the propaganda to be true. Right? And maybe that is still lingering somewhere in Washington.
Ali, I want to move on. At the recent, and still staying with the Prime, at the recent, 80th United Nations General Assembly, Grenada's presence, many say, was muted. No statement on Gaza, limited comment on global crises. Critics say our foreign policy has lost its voice. How do you assess Grenada's current foreign policy? Does it reflect clear principles or quiet alignment? What's your take on this? And why remain in silence compared to other countries like St. Vincent and Barbados? They spoke up.
Grenada's foreign policy at this time and our positioning, as it were, with regard to international and regional diplomacy, leave a lot to be desired. We have not spoken strongly and decisively on any particular issue. The Prime Minister gave a nice speech at the UN, but really and truly he did not address any of the pressing issues and concerns and make Grenada voice heard on our positions internationally. And that is why I wanted to get to that point. I believe that if there is any truth to this request of the U.S. For this military build-up in St. George's, it is because I believe that the U.S. see Grenada as a soft spot in the region. They would not dare ask Prime Minister Motley, Prime Minister Gonzalez, Pierre, and so in the region for that sort of thing. So why is it they don't ask Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar, who was openly and in the United Nations supported President Trump and so on, and the U.S. position and the military buildup. Why not ask Trinidad? Why Grenada?
She declared publicly this zone of peace is a myth.
Well,
I mean, she said that.
That's another issue, and that could take another program. But I believe.
Well, I was switching to CARICOM in a while.
I think that Prime Minister Persad-Bissessar, it's embarrassing, the statement that she has been making recently with regards to Venezuela. When we speak of zone of peace, and she speak about domestic crimes, we're speaking about state actions, conflict between states. You know, we talk about, we're talking about domestic. Crime within boundaries. We're talking about state actions and so on. So that for she to go to the UN and speak about, you know, basically said that it's not a zone of peace because in Trinidad there are high crime rate and so on, it's just completely reckless and a fundamental misunderstanding of what we speak of when we speak of zone of peace. And at the same time, I believe that she has done tremendous harm. I would not want to say irreparable harm because, you know, nations, you can always patch it up, to the Trinidad position, Trinidad relationship with its closest neighbor, Venezuela. And the fact now that we are witnessing the discussions that she had with the U.S. Secretary of State with regards to the Dragon Field gas issue, which Prime Minister Rowley and his government worked assiduously to bring to some sort of a fruition having regard to the embargo or the sanctions that the U.S. have on Venezuela and so on. She has done tremendous damage, you know. And I would want to see that the Foreign Affairs Minister in Grenada, who in all of this is very silent. I mean, really and truly, if you ask a school child who's the Foreign Affairs Minister, they may have to Google the answer. But that tells you about our foreign policy position. Now, and I have also written before with regards to the issue of our deployment as well of the human resource that we have available in the different missions around the world. And I am of the respectful view. We just appointed a new ambassador to the United Nations. Yes. And I am of the considered view that if we're thinking critically and analytically, and it's not to bash anybody. You know, sometimes you make these criticisms or you give your own opinions and views and people take it personal. Yeah. Myself and the new ambassador to the UN, we are very good friends. We have gone way back as well as comrades in political struggle. But I would want to believe that you will look for your most experienced ambassador now to be somewhere in and around the U.S. in the UN, one, in New York, and of course we have Tali Francis in Washington. But
we have a new ambassador in Canada also.
Consul General. Yes, Consul General. So, you know, in this, because the United States with President Trump is erratic to say the least.
Oh, yes.
And this deployment of military build-up in Venezuela, there's military build-up in Chicago as well, at different states throughout the U.S. You never know what's coming in there. You never know what next.
It's in the National Guard.
It's erratic.
You know what I mean?
So you need your best diplomats.
But
that's my argument.
I want to take it to CARICOM and a couple of issues on the CARICOM front. And of course, the first one is this statement that Kamala made, and you don't have a unified statement from CARICOM on this build-up and zone of peace. You have Mia Motley and Prime Minister Gonzalez expressing themselves quite clearly, and you have Kamala, which is part of CARICOM. She mentioned 1 from 10 leaves 0, so I don't know if she's sending a message about what CARICOM and their position is, but how do you see that affecting us as a region from a CARICOM perspective?
It weakens our position.
Yes.
It weakens our position in a very serious way, because what we have in CARICOM essentially is numbers. We have small population, small economy, no nuclear weapon and so on. So what we have, our biggest strength is unity in numbers. And Trinidad and Tobago is one of the biggest CARICOM territory. And with the leadership of Prime Minister Rowley was firm, he was strong, and he led. And Prime Minister Kamala Persaud-Desisa statements is not only unfortunate, it has weakened our CARICOM position. Now, the present chairman of CARICOM is Prime Minister Holness, and he's now coming out weeks out of the last elections, so that during the build-up and so on, I suspect that he was seriously engaged in the business of returning his political party to government. But he is now settled, cabinet has been announced, and is now sworn in and so on, maybe 3 weeks on. And we expect, I think, stronger leadership from Jamaica at this critical juncture.
I mean, the U.S. policy has always been to conquer them, divide them.
Yes.
And you could see who the Secretary of State have met with. He met with Jamaica, he met with now Kamala.
And let me say that Prime Minister Holness have always been close to the U.S. and not only now, in President Trump's first term, Jamaica at times would not join with the rest of CARICOM on certain positions. So you would observe, and it's very, very, you don't have gray hair by error. But no, it's very important, we will look to see who it is that is Secretary of State visiting,
right.
and who visits him.
Yes.
Yes, other than Prime Minister Persaud-Desisa, who else will having this private meeting with him, and so on and so forth. She flew to Washington, met with him, and had to go back to New York. So, as a POC, or as some reward, you get these private audiences with the Secretary of State or maybe the President or a senior U.S. official and so on and so forth. So, yes, the United States have always played this game of picking up one or two or three of us.
Happened in tourism
meet
with the
with
cruise
them and
ship,
so-
remember the cruise ship tax?
But aren't we sufficiently wise now to know and
Supposed
see
to
through
be.
those
Some of
deals?
us want to hit the republic status, and that speaks about a level of independence that we want to further to what we have now, to break away. But I want to bring this other thing that is troubling me with the CARICOM thing, and that's the free movement of people in the region. That recently we had Belize, I think it's St. Vincent.
Belize, St. Vincent, Dominica,
and
Barbados.
4 of them as CARICOM members who have acceded to free movement of nationals across the borders. Here in Grenada have not, and in Grenada we have a serious issue with labor. And what is happening with labor in construction, agriculture, and other. I could not understand what was the foreign policy hesitancy after we've been discussing this for decades, free movement. And we thought we started in professionals, we went to by phases, and then it's now freed up, anybody could move. But here is Grenada not on board with this thing, as yet, I have to say.
I issued a statement, I'm not sure if it was congratulating the leaders of these CARICOM countries that has take that step. You so correctly pointed out, this free movement is what CSME and so on has all been about. We've been discussing it for decades. We have moved inch by inch. We have work certificates. We had this, we had that. And these prime ministers have come and said, listen, enough is enough. Let's make this bold initiative. And I read and listened to Prime Minister Mia Mottley's address on the subject, allaying the fears of the Barbadians, that listen, people are just coming from your work. I listened to Prime Minister Skerritt. Those are the 2 prime ministers that I saw statements about, and they had to allay the fears of the Dominicans and say, listen, there has never been, we look at the European Union, there has never been, because you have free movement, Grenadians move en masse.
Exactly.
Anywhere in Barbados and vice versa, because no, it doesn't happen that way. But what we really do is that for companies, construction companies, for trading companies, you can look.
You need technical skills.
Technical skills. You can look in other islands to see.
And impart that to the locals as well.
Where demand and supply and so on. And I was a little heartbroken, to be honest with you, because in my short stint as a Grenada's ambassador to CARICOM, those are the things that we try to champion, that I championed. And, you know, I don't know, and I cannot speak to the issues as to why Grenada is not on board with the free movement. I honestly don't. And the truth is, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I have not heard them make a statement as to why. And that is something, you know, I believe should be forthcoming.
I mean, we're talking about this for years.
Yeah, somebody should say to us, listen.
The analysis and everything have been complete.
Yes, it's come. All the work, the studies have been done.
That's right.
And I'm not heartbroken, but I'm not surprised. Because here again, on the last time I appeared on your program, I made the point that when I leave here to go to any of the OECS territories on Barbados and so on, I can fill out my entry form, immigration entry form online, and scan my thing on the when I arrive. In Grenada, we still have to fill out the forms. In other words, it seems to me that we are not keeping with the pace of change that is happening around us in terms of technology, in terms of carbon integration.
St. Vincent have
St. Vincent, Dominica, St. Kitts, all of them, Antigua, so have it. All these islands have it, you know. And why is it that we are not there yet? It does not look good for us. And I'm not saying that
we have a lot of digital transformation taking place within the government and the government services, and it amazes you. You could go on our airport, land, and scan your passport on the machines, but yet still we have to follow this form.
Yes.
And it speaks to where are we with this and how we doing this.
And the truth is, the technology is there.
That's right.
And it's been around for a while. So why is it? What is the problem? What are the issues? And one will think that okay, the Ministry of Implementation and so on will try to unblock it, because when I envisage the Ministry of Implementation is not simply to
infrastructure
to construct chapel houses or to fix potholes, but the issue would have been to look at programs within the government where you have bottlenecks and try to unclog those and try to execute those at all levels, regardless of what areas. Troubleshoot. That is what we expect. So I expect, you know, by now somebody could say, what is it happening at our ports? That is why we're not fully digital, you know, and that we do not, is not up to speed with the technology. But I would really want to use this platform to ask the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, what is up with our free movement? Why is it Grenada not a part of it? Is there immediate plans? Do we have a 6 months schedule to join the rest of the 4 countries and so? What is happening? You know, and we are silent about all these things and nobody says anything. It's like, you know, tomorrow comes and it's just like another day and we just leave, you know. And
I want to segue the conversation into crime, because crime has been on the forefront of the agenda of CARICOM, regionally as well. The movement of arms and ammunition within our countries and how it influences the national environment in terms of what's happening to our young people and their involvement in crime. Grenada recently passed more legislation about when you get caught with a firearm and ammunition, you get no bail, and so on.
At the magistrate's court.
At the magistrate's court, and that was something that some of the lawyers had some difficulty with. But from a regional and inter-local context, how do you see our countries with the crime situation? St. Lucia is in a bad way with crime as well. And what is happening there?
And from an ex-magistrate point of view, you've been a magistrate in which country?
Dominica.
Right.
Do you believe we have the right approach?
No, I don't believe we have the right approach. In fact, national security, to my mind, is arguably our most important challenge at this time. And I have written and said little bits of it. And we need an entire criminal justice reform program. From the construction of a new prison facility, whatever name you may want to call it, rehabilitation and so on, because now it is overcrowded, of
Badly
course.
so.
Badly so. And
Say-
then also
say
too for the
badly
security of the well-being and security of the prison officers, and how do you treat with inmates that are more violent in nature and more skilled, and how do you deal with lesser inmates and so on. You don't want persons going up there on non-violent crimes and mixing with prisoners that are there for violent crimes and so on. So all of you have to start looking at that. Then the issue of how do we treat with juveniles. Very important, because you see it now, it's happening that quite a few juveniles are graduating from misdemeanors and offenses that they've committed on the streets and so on into major crimes. So they have gone from 18, 19 and they're now 21, 22 and they're committing major crimes. How do we capture them and treat with them? The Bacolet facility has been a good addition. We need to look at a halfway house in terms of treating with adolescent persons. The Ministry of Social Development is a very important ministry in all of that. Is, when we think of national security, it's not just policemen and arresting and so on and so forth. We do not have sufficient social workers in the judicial system to assist a lot of our young people in terms of, using divergence mechanisms and so on and so forth, conflict resolution and mediation. Well, you as a mediator yourself, we have on the books or in planning mediation for criminal matters, not just civil matters. Yeah. So we've seen how can we resolve conflicts, especially between family and domestic disputes and so on and so forth.
We train a lot of police and social workers.
Right.
Because we recognize it starts at the police level and the ground.
So it's not just about policing. That's one aspect of it. So, social development and the family and so on and so forth. But we have not had that holistic approach. Now, this bit of legislation with the amendment of the firearms and ammunition and so on, and we cannot get bail, persons cannot get bail. It's ridiculous, really, and it's not well thought out. Of course, it makes the government appear that we are doing something, and we are harsh on crimes and criminals and so on. But the reality is that we face every day is that there is nothing wrong with the magistrates having a discretion with granting bail for persons. In fact, most of the times, the police, the prosecution, would not object to this some persons getting bail. Because really and truly, what we have, and people don't know, you have incidences that make the news, where somebody shoots somebody in one street. Right? But what we have more in the system is somebody being found with one bullet, one ammunition, two ammunition, where a hunter with a hunting gun, 3 of us go out and hunt, but one person had the license for the gun, but 3 partners go and hunt. 3 of them shoot Manikou. And one end up with a bullet in his bag, go home, and he don't have the license. The police come find him with the license, charge him, he can't get bail. And he just hunted. So you have guys with antique gun. The gun can fire, there's no bullet made for it and so on, but it's a gun under the definition and so on. So you have a lot of persons.
Pellet guns now fall under
pellet guns and flare.
Yeah, I think a license for all of those.
Right, so that you have persons really and truly that are not quote unquote criminals, so to speak. They're not a criminal enterprise, but naivety or the hunting situations and so on. So that you need to do some leeway for incidences like that. We're not speaking here about persons that, put on a gun and go in St. George's or Wall Street or whatever and commit offenses and so on and so forth. There are, from the time I started practicing now 25 years ago, we've always had persons with possession of arms or ammunition. Sometimes it's two. When we say ammunition, it's bullets, 2-3 bullets, or an old gun, I working or something.
Do you think, the amnesty worked?
No, it hasn't. The amnesty did not work.
You were in that field every day.
The amnesty did not work with sufficient arms and I think now is a time to, the amnesty can be a one-off. I think now is a good time to revisit the amnesty for Christmas and so on. We've had these incidences again, try again. Maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks again.
Because leading up to Christmas, we just have crimes with, robberies and gas stations and all of that.
Try it again. And when you do it again, no mixed messages. Because on the last occasion, we had the amnesty, and you had, persons were not clear. People, some of my clients did not feel comfortable that they could walk into a police station and bring in a firearm. That's just the truth on the ground. Sometimes you hear this thing on the news. You hear the thing on the news, but the dissemination of information and so on, and the clarity in which we say things and the practice and so on, you have to make it clear so that persons feel comfortable that they can do this. I think now is a good time again to make an effort to see if we can get to the
we run out of time, but
already
culture and calypso and identity is a big deal for you. You're involved in this. You've been a cultural advocate and involved in the calypsonian movement. Yet today our cultural expression feels diluted. Even West Indies cricket, one symbol of our pride, has fallen to 8th or 9th place in world ranking. Has calypso lost its protest, its voice, its conscience? I mean, how do we reconnect Caribbean youth and cultural identity and self-worth? What's happening in this area with us from a regional perspective also?
The cultural invasion is alarming. Now with the social media, and all this cable television and the new media, we see a lot more of North American culture and influence. And we are not seeing ourselves through song, dance, storytelling, and so on as we once were. And that is troubling. In that, yes, around Carnival time we calypso and we speak about the job and so on and so forth. But that's just one aspect of the culture, and that is seasonal. What's happening now with the poetry, the storytelling, with our folk culture, the dances and so on and so forth? That platform is not there. You cannot turn on, how often can you turn on MTV or any other local television or radio station and hear ourselves and see ourselves perform and so on? So that when I was in government and so on, I initiated the development of the Filming Association, and persons, I think...
we have a whole ministry devoted to creative arts.
That's another topic we can have.
And that's supposed
but all of that filming and so on, we need to be bottling and putting short play and skits and so on. The African movies that we see, that the Bollywood, it is called, $1 million industry now. It started off from short plays and small plays, funded by the European Union. And then over time it has evolved into full-length movies and so on and so forth, that they have a thriving industry.
I always
the Caribbean and Grenada,
among the African music that we listen to now.
Afrobeats. Yes.
It has something for 10 years ago wasn't around.
Yeah. And Afrobeats is a generic term used to describe different genre of African music. Because so that within Afrobeats you have Nigerian, Ghanaian, and so on and so forth, different beats. And these African musicians have stuck to their craft, mastered their craft, get their song, get their beat to the world. And I believe we in the Caribbean need to stick to a bit. Reggae has gone, but I think when I say gone, reggae has made it is international. But I believe we in the Calypso, soca countries, we need to stick to our craft, master our craft, give us new song and new beat and so on and so forth. We do not have to be imitating other people's song and music to make it.
2025 Calypso, everybody has said that, the standard was really good. The music, quality of the music was really good. And, they got high ratings. I mean, the social influencers that were here have given Grenada kudos on an international.
So now we have to be consistent.
Yes.
That's the point. You can't be this good in 2025 and 2026, nobody want to hear you. And we can't wait a whole year again to hear you sing a song. This month, October, is Tobago's Carnival. And Grenada music is playing excellent rotation across the region. Now, a new artist, they are emerging out of Grenada. We have always had the Talpri, the Killer, and so on. But now other artists are emerging. Now they have to be consistent with the song and go up. Can't drop your level and drop your standards.
Ali, you're the chair of Grenada National Reparations Committee, and you sit on the CARICOM Reparations Commission. 10 years after the 10-point plan We're yet to see movement from the UK or Europe, or critics say the momentum is fading. But the point here is, how can we make reparations meaningful to today's young Caribbean generation who feel detached from that history? What is
education. And education both formally in schools and informally through these sort of medium and so on. I believe that we have made tremendous strides with the advocacy of reparations. I have been around the world basically, giving lectures and being part of panel discussions in Africa, in Europe, in Latin America, all over the world. Not just myself, but my colleagues as well throughout the region. Now in November, UNESCO have a second dialogue discussion on reparations. Now the United Nations, reparations is a subject there as well. And we are making strides. But at the same time, as we continue to advocate for reparative justice globally and so on, we also have a role to play in Grenada and in the Caribbean so that our brothers and sisters understand what we speak about reparative justice. Because it's not just about money in pocket and so on and so forth. Same things we are talking about in culture, appreciating your own music. We want our music to reach global, but how many of us go to pay to support our artists when they put on a show and a concert? You have to dance a yard before you dance abroad. In other words, we have to support our own, support our local musicians and so on and so forth, support our theater companies, support our own cultural art forms, and give the artists and so on the support that they need by going and supporting them, by the government putting resources into it and so on and so forth, and building that industry. Similarly with reparative justice and so on, you know, we have to, first of all, we were able to lobby successfully, and this government, kudos to them, to reintroduce the teaching of history in the lower secondary schools. And Dr. Nicole Dow Philip has written a brilliant text for that purposes, and that's one thing. We need to get into the National College, we need to get into our primary schools and so on. And persons, the teaching of history needs to go from primary to secondary to tertiary education, but we also need live programs on radio and television, so for the general public, not just a man talking and so on. But of course, you know, we do not have a library, so to speak. Our museum is there. Our museum is not modern. I mean, we say museum for want of a better word. Yeah. But we need an interactive modern museum and so on, where persons can go and experience and see what slavery was like, what this was like, and so on, with all the different AI technology and so. So you know, so that we have a lot of work to do.
We're gonna have to. You have to come back on the program again, because we have so much to talk about.
We just touching
but, you know,
on
we have a limitation with time, so give you a couple of minutes to quickly wrap up and give us some thoughts.
Well, first of all, allow me to commend you gentlemen for a program like this, because I don't believe that serious current affairs is debated and discussed in Grenada, frankly. You know, we cannot have this issue with all the U.S. military build-up in Venezuela and we walk around as if nothing happened. We cannot have the likelihood of our government. They would not be asked. They'll be pressured. Right? I mean, nobody will come and tell you, can I deploy military assets, please? No. Come on. You know, they'll put pressure on us. And interestingly, I saw the Ministry of Health Grenada, after it has been the only Caribbean island, English-speaking Caribbean island, that a minister visa was revoked over this Cuban issue.
Yes.
And I saw that a clipping 2 weeks ago that Grenada has agreed to treat Cuban workers as local workers and so on. Now the solidarity of the scheme by which we paid Cuba and the Cuban workers is in the solidarity of the Cuban government for all that they have done to us. So already we are buckling under the pressure. And that is why if you give an inch, they want a yard. So you move with the Cuban workers in a particular way. Now the U.S. believe, well, we could go further with them. So that our people need to be sensitized. And I believe this is a very good beginning to sensitize the national population and where we really and truly need to have this public debate on these issues. And I want to call on the government. I want to ask the opposition leader and the opposition political party to lock arms on this issue of rebuffing the United States, if indeed it's asked, if any request is made of us to have military assets deployed on in our waters.
And remind us, Ali, as to the reason why it has to be rebuffed.
It has to be rebuffed because we want to maintain our region as a zone of peace.
That's right.
We are friends of all, satellites of none. And we do not want, we have lived a peaceful existence post-independence. If we have squabbles among ourselves as family members. But we do not want to engage and be hostile to any country. We do not want our land or waters to be used to attack our neighbors and so on. We believe that any conflict or any difficulty or challenge that we have between ourselves can be resolved diplomatically.
Ali, I want to thank you tremendously for coming. I mean, we were educated on a number of fronts, obviously, so we certainly will have you back. We have our election coming up soon. We have a budget reading just now, so, you know, independent thinking is something we appreciate, and we thank you for being on the program. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for
Thank you,
having
Ali.
me.
Pleasure. Yes, to be
Viewers,
back.
that is our program this evening. We thank you for staying with us. We hope you enjoyed it. On behalf of MTV and all the support staff, we thank you for being here. Good night.